Coleman Report Live, April Fool's edition, but I don't see anybody doing any April Fools this year. Thanks to our sponsor, Leslie Tripp. Did I get that right, Leslie?
Yes, yes.
Tell us what you
That's
do.
correct. I have a company, L-Trip Consulting. We're based in Maryland, and our firm specializes in loan compliance and specifically SBA loan review and SBA program compliance. Some of the things we've been helping our lenders out with recently include assisting lenders who are new to SBA lending with the setup of their SBA department. This can include training their staff, helping them prepare pre-closing checklists, and preparing an SBA credit policy, et cetera, things like that. We've been assisting lenders by reviewing their prepared liquidation packages. And our largest piece of work is performing independent loan reviews on a lender's SBA loans when their audit or their risk department asks them to have a third-party review. For a bank that's acquiring a portfolio of SBA loans from another bank, merger or sale, et cetera, we can review the SBA loans acquired or to be acquired for their compliance to the SOP. So for any SBA loan and program compliance that you may need, please contact us to see if we can help. We are open for business and everything we do can be performed remotely.
Right. Thank you very much, Leslie. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Lance, what we're going to do today is we're going to answer questions. I have like 300 questions in the queue.
I'm not sure if I'm ready for that, Bob.
We're going to play Stump Lance.
Well, I'm sure you're going to stump me today.
There's a certificate, download that, put that in your files. Evidence of certification. Look, what I did, Lance, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on these or you want to add something. I tried to take the top 5 takeaways for the rules that SBA issued yesterday. And the most important things for lenders. Number 1, there's now debt forgiveness, not deferral, but forgiveness for all 7A loans for 6 months and payment and interest, Lance.
Yeah, this is a incredible benefit to all the existing SBA borrowers. Within 30 days after the enactment of the legislation, SBA is to pay 6 months worth of principal, interest, and fees for all borrowers. It's not a deferment. It's not added on to the back of the loan. You as an SBA participant lender will apply it as a normal payment. There's some more guidance that will come out on how this will actually work, but you know, we were talking about that before the show started. We were getting a ton of deferral requests, and we kind of paused on that a little bit because we knew this was part of the legislation. This is much better than a deferral.
Oh, absolutely.
6 months worth of payments, and there was a tremendous amount of money dedicated to this in the legislation. I think the SBA participant lender is going to be required to report. I'm still looking for implementation details. It's hard for me to understand why the SBA participant lender will have to report things because it's already reported on the 1502 report, so they should already have it. But we're still waiting for some implementation guidelines on this. But this is a huge, huge benefit for all your existing SBA loan customers. And it's not just 7A
loans as well, Lance, right?
It's not just 7A loans, Bob. It's the SBA portion of the 504 loans.
But also for new loans as well, you get an automatic 6 months, not deferral, forgiveness.
Yeah, 6 months worth of payments made on new loans. I had one of our specialists talk to me, and he just closed a loan, and technically that loan will get 6 months worth of payments made for it.
Number 2, documentation for PPP loans is minimal. All they want to know is were you in business as of February 15th, and what were your employees?
Yeah, Bob, and I hope our participant lenders don't overwork the documentation requirements. SBA in their guidance. The underwriting process just requires that you prove they were in business prior to that February date in the guidance. I think it was the 15th, Bob. So if you've got a copy of their articles of organization or incorporation or something that just proves they were there, that's perfectly fine. And then proof of their payroll for the previous year so you can calculate what the average monthly payroll is. And I've seen the application form, and you just plug the average monthly payroll, and it's got the 2.5 multiplier, and you've got a loan amount.
Yeah. And I
But
just
don't overwork this, guys. You don't have to collect 800 documents from the client. SBA is not requiring that.
Yeah, I mean, that's all you need. That's all you need. Number 3, lenders will be compensated for the processing fee directly by SBA. In other words, the borrower does not pay any guarantee fees, no origination fees, no packaging fees. The lender gets a fee, but is paid by SBA.
And the lender gets compensated in a way that I think is pretty generous from SBA as soon as the loan is dispersed. One thing I want to talk about here just real briefly, be very cautious because there was language about the borrower paying any fees to anybody. For instance, somebody helping them prepare, which they shouldn't have to get help on this, but there was some specific discussion. Any fee paid related to the payroll protection loan program is supposed to come out of the lender's fee that they receive from SBA.
Now, this one's interesting. I don't know the backstory of what happened on this. The legislation said we could get up to 4% for 10 years. The guidance that came out yesterday says, no. 0.5% for 2 years. I have no idea how that happened, and I know I've been taking a lot of phone calls on that, and that's going to greatly negatively impact lenders' willingness to participate in this program, Lance.
I still think they're going to be pretty active because I believe a majority of these loans will be under 350, which has a 5% processing fee to the lender. The other thing, Bob, is these are not year or 2 year long loans. Most of these loans will be in and out in 120 to 150 days.
Why do you say that? Why do you say that?
Well, because to get forgiveness on the loan, you have to spend the money in a relatively short period of time. I suspect that the borrowers are going to be asking for forgiveness very shortly thereafter. You know, I expect all these loans will be made, but of course there's a deadline. All these loans will be made in the next, 90 days, and probably will be off the books 120 days after that. So if you look at the yield, if you get a 5% fee and it's a 6-month deal, it's not a bad deal for the bank.
But no secondary market. PPP loans are exempt for SBA's existing regulations. And what I mean by that is everything: credit elsewhere, personal resource test, affiliation, collateral, life insurance, underwriting.
Yeah, it's all credit elsewhere's out the door. Affiliation more or less is out the door.
Now just to be clear, this is just
PPP.
Yeah,
And this is just PPP loans. The 7A loan program, which I have to even remind myself, Bob, still exists. The regular 7A loan program still has the same guidelines that it always had. Just on these PPP loans, SBA has skinnied back the underwriting requirements to proving they're in business and proving they had a payroll.
Lance, I got several calls from FDIC regulated lenders who do not have a Master 750. How do they get signed up? The law says that they can do these loans on a delegated basis. Do you know the logistics of how someone does that?
I have not seen anything, Bob, but here's the, guys, I'd like to say my bank's a preferred lender. We've been in the SBA lending business for a long time. I'd like to say we'd like to do a bulk of these loans, and so would some of the other large SBA lenders out there. But if you took every SBA participant lender that we had and they all work feverishly over the next 90 days, we're not going to get all of that money out there like Congress and the president wants us to do. It's going to not only require the current group of participant lenders, but there's going to have to be some new players in the game. So, and SBA has indicated that that's going to be allowed, but I've not seen any guidance, Bob, on how someone that's not currently an SBA participant lender gets signed up.
Well, we'll track that down. Hey, if you want to know more about this, we have our Coleman webinar at the top of the hour, and just send an email to Joseph at joseph@colemanreport.com. We can do this. This is courtesy of
Our good friend.
Pardon?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
This is courtesy of Lehigh Financial, and one of their CPAs put together this chart, and that may answer some questions. You can't read it very well, but I believe it's in the dashboard. You can download that. And thank you very much for that, Lehigh.
I've been seeing some spreadsheets pop or sent around. In fact, my good friend Paul, who's probably on the call, sent me one that I thought would be a tremendous tool in calculating the loan amount on the SBA loan and calculating the amount of the forgiveness. So we're starting to see some of these tools. And guys, here's something. You don't have to create your own tool. Use other people's tools. Use what you're finding because we need all hands on deck to get this out and to help small business. This is a great tool that Bob is sharing with us, and I've seen 2 or 3 others. So
right, yeah. So yeah, and that's this is created by a CPA. So thank you very much for that, Lehigh. And here's the webinar information, which we're going to go much more in depth on that at the top of the hour. Hey, I promised you some questions, so let's get to the questions because I have a ton of these.
Bob, no.
I'm sorry. I know I have nonprofits that were never SBA clients. What do I need to know?
Well, if you read the guidance from the law, most nonprofits, not all, are eligible for the payroll protection loan program. And you need to look at the guidance. There are still some that will not be eligible.
If a borrower has already reduced staff prior to this program, are they disqualified? The answer is no, as long as they rehire those people back.
Yeah, part of the payroll protection loan, I mean, if they laid them off and bring them back and keep them through the period necessary to get to the forgiveness part, they will be fine.
Okay. Will the 6 months of payments be only for 7A loans, or will they also include 504 loans? Lance said they include the second portion of that.
What I'm not clear about, Bob, is, of course, on 504s, you've got a first mortgage with the participant bank and then the debenture issue. It's pretty clear that the debenture payments will be made. I'm not 100% sure about the first mortgage.
They're not going to be the first. They're not going to be the first. Let's see. Rachel says under the CARES Act, 70 cannot be deferred in order to qualify for the subsidy. Actually, what the act says, Rachel, is you can have the deferral, then you can do the 6 months after that.
Yeah, that's a mistake that a lot of people, if you're currently on deferral, those 6 months worth of payments are made after the deferral ends.
Right. Let's see. Mary Peters reminds everyone to use the SBDC to help them navigate through this process. And we have that. And would like to understand how brokers can help in this process. Jeffrey. Well, Jeffrey, brokers can do that, and brokers could actually take the fee. But remember, 2 master rules still applies. You can only take the fee from the borrower or from the lender. In other words, the lender can get the fee and then pay you if you're doing all that work. They're talking about supporting payroll numbers. That was that chart was for. Can we get reimbursed for hiring a temp?
Well, I think if you add an employee, the basis for the loan amount is going to be based on your 19 payroll, or if you're a new business, it may be based on partial year 19, partial year 20. But if you're in business for all of 19, it's going to look at your annual payroll, figure out what your average monthly was to determine the loan amount. As long as you're spending the money on payroll and can prove that, spending the money on rent and prove that, or spending the money on utilities and prove that, it will get forgiven. If you're not spending it on the qualified categories of expense, which 75% of the loan amount has to be spent on payroll in order to get forgiveness.
I'm going to check on this. Obviously, this is something I didn't know. It says the PPP application reads that a tax return is required. Is that your understanding, Lance?
That is not my understanding, but I'll have to go back and look at it.
Okay. And then they're saying do we need 2019, or can we go back and use 2018? I will follow up on that. Is interest and principal eligible for forgiveness on the PPP 7A? The answer is yes. What
Yep.
promissory note do we use, Lance?
I think that's going to, that's part of the guidance that we have not seen at this point. Probably will come out today. I suspect that in order to facilitate this, now SBA may come out with a special note for this. I don't know. I haven't seen it yet. I have seen the application form. I've seen a borrower information, a bank information, some guidelines and details, and I've seen an actual, as an example, SBA Form 147. Haven't seen something like that for this loan program. Bob, my expectation is they're probably going to do like the express loan and let the participant lender use their own note.
I want to go back to the tax thing. I remember reading in there the only thing that I picked up on that is the borrower is certifying that the tax return is consistent with what they reported to the IRS is consistent, is accurate. That's all.
There's some borrower certifications. It's kind of a long, quick checklist that the borrower is certifying that they've done certain things, but I did not see the requirement for tax returns, financial statements, anything like that.
How are these applications uploaded to the SBA?
My expectation is E-Tran and SBA 1's probably, I haven't looked today, but someone showed me the other day that there was a CARES Act tab or a PPP tab. I don't think it's live, but I think there's going to be a special tab in E-Tran and SBA 1 for this. That's what I think. I don't know.
Can compensation to 1099 contractors be included with wages?
Yes.
My understanding is yes. What if the borrower is already behind on their SBA loans, Lance?
They haven't really dealt with that in this, and
The legislation says they have to be current, and current is what, 60 days?
Most people are going to think current's less than 30. 60 days is going into liquidation.
Well, less than 30, but you're current as of 30 days delinquent, correct? So do you have another 30 days?
I hope we get guidance on that, Bob. The information I've seen on
Just says current.
It says the way SBA defined it in the legislation is loans in regular servicing, which regular servicing would mean not in liquidation. Not in liquidation, typically you don't put an SBA loan in liquidation until it's more than, or 60 days or more past due. So, but I feel like we'll get additional guidance hopefully sometime today.
So if I close a new loan next week, 7A loan, that person is eligible for
6 payment.
Okay. Application states lender needs to verify tax documentation. We're going to follow up on that. I know this opens up on Friday. What time?
Yeah, that's a good question, Bob. All I saw was the date. And guys, you know, SBA's IT infrastructure is going to be tested in a very big way. So be patient.
For the PPP loan, if a business was formed recently, let's say 3 months ago, January 1, would we just use the past 3 months for average payroll? Yes.
Yes. Yes.
They need to tell us what supporting documentation is needed to support the payroll numbers. I just filed my quarterly payroll stuff, and it is through QuickBooks. It's all laid out in there.
Yeah, your quarterly tax reports to the IRS are the best documentation for this.
Obviously, any employee over $100,000 is, do we cap it at the 100,000 or we just strike them?
Cap it at 100.
Okay, we answered that. We answered that. We think it's going to be E-Tran. This is a great question. I don't know the answer. Can we get an EIDL loan and a PPP loan at the same time, Lance?
Here, guys, this is my thought and what I've heard. I've heard a lot of different things in relationship to this. You cannot get an EIDL loan and a PPP loan for the same purpose. So you can't get both for payroll. It is possible, I think, that you could get an EIDL loan for other reasons, not payroll related, but you cannot do both for the same purpose. It's pretty
Correct.
clear. It's pretty clear.
I want to talk a little bit about the forgiveness on the PPP. You can get a larger PPP loan based on overhead. However, SBA is saying they're only going to forgive the payroll portion plus 25% of that overhead. But you can go larger, but the borrower is responsible for that. Correct, Lance?
What SBA is saying is your loan is based on your payroll and benefits, including stuff like group health insurance, retirement contributions, and so forth. And it's 2.5 times that amount. But you can use the money on payroll, rent, mortgage interest, utilities. You have to use 75% of the loan amount on payroll in order for it to be forgiven, and the other 25% could be used on those other qualified expense categories.
My understanding was 100% of payroll plus 25%.
I'm not 100% sure on that, Bob.
I think I'm right on that. Hey, this is a great question. Construction loans that are not fully funded, are they eligible?
You're talking about for the payments, six
Yes.
payment? Boy, that is a tremendous question, and Bob, I do not know the answer.
Let's see. Well, it's 1020.
Bob, I would expect yes in some way, but I have no idea how this would
How
be.
it's going to work. Yeah, I agree. Well, very good. Thank you all very much. A ton of questions. We appreciate it. Stick around for the webinar top of the hour, and we'll all talk to you all tomorrow. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Have a great day.